Shalom and welcome to Parasha Espresso, the weekly fix for spiritual lessons taken from the Parasha. Grab your coffee and let's take a look at the weekly Torah reading. Today we'll be looking at Parashat Shalach, which runs from Numbers chapter 13 verse 1 to chapter 15 verse 41. Enjoy it, and don't forget to give us your feedback on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or via our website.
Does size really matter? Just ask the maintenance crew of the 𝐒𝐴RO Peru flight that took off on the 2nd of October 1996. In a well-documented case, the pilot of the Boeing 757 realized soon after taking off that his instruments weren't working. In the confusion and due to the bleak weather conditions, the plane ended up crashing into the sea and all on board perished. The cause of the crash? The maintenance crew had forgotten to remove duct tape that had been placed over the external measuring instruments during the routine washing of the aircraft. A small incident of negligence had caused the death of 70 people. The harrowing case of the 𝐒𝐴RO Peru flight is a perfect example of the butterfly effect, a chaos theory postulation that small, seemingly insignificant incidents can have far-reaching consequences. The idea is that the flapping of the wings of a butterfly could ultimately cause a hurricane. Or, in our case, a small piece of duct tape could cause the loss of 70 lives. While people don't generally tend to think of the Torah as scientific, chaos theory is alive and well in this week's parasha, and it's a key one. Our people are excited about entering into the land, and God tells Moses to send 12 spies to scout out the land, which proves to bring both good and bad results. It's the start of the butterfly effect. All the spies return bringing a glowing report of a land flowing with milk and honey. But 10 of the spies focus on the small print. There are giants living in the land, and there's no way we'll ever be able to conquer it. Our butterfly has slowly started to flap. The remaining 2 spies reassure the people that the same God who brought them out of Egypt would be able to bring them into their new land. But nothing doing. Our ancestors freak out and start a full-on mutiny. They decide to elect a new leader, stone Moses, and head back to Egypt. The butterfly's wings are really starting to flap now. Thankfully, God intercedes and decides to have a word with Moses. For the second time, Moses shows remarkable humility and begs God to spare our people instead of making a new nation out of him. God agrees, but there are some tragic consequences. The entire generation that rebelled were to perish in the wilderness. Only Joshua and Caleb, the spies who tried to comfort the people, would make it out alive. Our butterfly storm is brewing. As Moses transmits God's message to the people, they suddenly have a change of heart. Not because they've actually learnt anything, but because they don't want to die in the desert. So they decide to go up and try and conquer the land on their own, after all, without Moses, and, more importantly, without God. Suffice to say, it doesn't go well. Our butterfly's tornado is whirling, leaving a train of destruction in its wake. And the bad news is, it's only going to get worse. Both the airplane story and the story of our people show us that even little mistakes or errors of judgment can lead to big consequences. Thankfully, of course, that's not always the case. But it's a good reminder that our actions have consequences, whether we like it or not. That harsh word we say to our co-worker, or that look that we give a stranger can all lead somewhere we never could have imagined. The greatest example of this, of course, is when our first parents, Adam and Eve, decided to eat a piece of fruit in the garden. Their rebellion and rejection of God, the life source, brought death and destruction to our world. At the time, there is no way they could have realized what their one act of rebellion would lead to. But we, today, are still feeling the effects of that mutiny. Their rebellion and ours led to arguably the biggest butterfly effect in history, the death of the Messiah, the Son of God. But thankfully, his death and resurrection produced a butterfly effect of its own, the chance to undo the consequences of the first rebellion. Now, regardless of all of the thousands of things that we've done over the course of our lives and the resulting consequences, we can have the chance to have a clean slate, a new life, a second chance thanks to the Messiah taking the fall for our wrongdoing. In our parasha, our people have a second chance thanks to Moses. In our lives, we have a second chance thanks to the one who was like Moses, Yeshua the Messiah. The second greatest butterfly effect caused his death, but the greatest butterfly effect, which was brought about by his death, caused the possibility for all to have life. Who could have possibly seen that coming? I'm thankful that I wasn't in the desert with our ancestors. I'm also thankful that I wasn't part of the maintenance crew on that fateful Aero Peru flight. And yet I, and we all, have done and said and thought things that were wrong, and that we thought there would be no consequences for. But there were, even if we didn't see them. And ultimately, all of our wrong choices brought about the death of the Messiah. Thankfully, as we've seen, that wasn't the end of the story. His death and resurrection can undo the butterfly effect caused by our own stupidity. The question we have to answer is, are we willing to accept it?
That's it for this episode. We hope you enjoyed our Parasha Espresso. Please don't forget to subscribe to make sure you get the latest episodes. We'd love to hear from you, so please get in touch with us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or via our website at 𝐒𝐡𝐞𝐥𝐬𝐡.de.